Well, us kids knew all the beer jingles, and this particular one was one that our whole family, mom, dad, everybody would sing along, and if you'll humor me here.
Yeah.
Highlander beer's the beer, refreshing, cool, clean and clear. Highlander, Highlander, Highlander beer.
Welcome back to the Montana Beer and Brewery Museum with Bubs. We've got lots of cool things to share with you, including some awesome and fun quotes, many favorite things, and some jingles too. Keep watching, because this is a tour you don't want to miss.
Everything that you see in here is all chronologic by brewery. And so you can always look at the left side of bottles and cans, and you can see how they've changed through the years. And you mentioned Budweiser a little while ago, Anheuser-Busch.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Montana Bud from Red Lodge, and used to be, before Anheuser-Busch copyrighted the name Bud and Budweiser, all it meant was, like right here in Montana, all it meant was this is a Pilsner beer in the style of Pilsen, Czechoslovakia.
Right.
And
the Budvar.
Yeah, from Budvar. Yep. Mm-hmm. And so lots of breweries used Budvar or Budweiser or Bud when they brewed Pilsner beer, and that's what we did here in Montana.
I guess that would be akin to today, where we have like a Dortmunder or
Yes.
something like that, where
Exactly.
it's basically based off the location it was originally brewed.
That's exactly it. You can see how regional it was. There's Old Faithful from Bozeman, and remember your ABCs. Well, that was the Anaconda Brewing Company, and so if you were a well-schooled kid in Anaconda, at least you got through the first three letters of the alphabet, probably before you could walk or talk. But I just you can see that during Prohibition, you can see where the breweries went to soda water, and
Right.
so they brewed pop. You can see those old colony beverages there, again, that was just part of the adjustment to some of those really, really difficult laws that they had.
Oh, gosh,
And they're still dreadful. The laws are still dreadful.
Yes.
I go over personally every couple of years and testify for more open views of brewing here in Montana, but it often falls on deaf ears.
It seems
We've
to
made
have.
a few little bits of progress, but it's still pretty archaic, but always has been archaic. When you see these old pictures here, one of the things you'll note is that there's always another building next to the brewery, and that's because Montana law back in the 1800s, early 1900s, said you couldn't rack or bottle your beer in the same building that you brewed it in. I have researched, as a practicing anthropologist, I have researched everywhere I could think of as to why that was the case. Nobody really knows why, but you had to bottle your beer 30 feet from the building that you brewed it in. So you'll see most. This is an early Kessler brewery, early brewery, and off to the side, I'll show you a real good picture here in a minute. But come on.
I don't know what sense that would make, other than maybe it's some kind of, the puritanical kind of thing that usually comes into play at some point with most of our alcohol laws.
Well, yeah, and these are dreadfully archaic, but every brewery had its own story. And there's a Marysville Brewery down there. There's a Central in Helena, only lasted 2 months before it burnt down. Most breweries had fires, and if they were lucky, they were able to extinguish them before the place burned down. But they were brewing with open flame, and so it just tended to happen. This place right here was in the little village of Glendale. Was home to 4 breweries in the 1800s, And what's interesting about this one is that you can actually see the smelter back here, and the creek that they brewed water from is right behind this building. But if you look closely at the white part of the building in the front, there's a little window. It's actually a door up above the sign in the front. And the old caretaker lived up there, Joseph Schlattner, and he had a tendency to drink often way too much, and he had a mean dog that he lived with, and one night he climbed into bed, and the dog kicked over, at least what we think, kicked over the kerosene lamp, and the brewery caught on fire, and everybody in town formed a bucket brigade. You never wanted your brewery to burn down, for gosh sakes,
yeah.
of all things. And they started passing the bucket, and somebody went, "Wow, Schlattner's upstairs sleeping," and so they ran up these stairs and inside there, but the mean dog wouldn't let him in his little room.
Oh gosh!
And there was nobody. I'm not going to get bit, so they climbed back down the stairs and kept throwing water on it. Well, the whole thing burned to a crisp, as did old Jacob. And the next morning, they found his charred remains and what they could find of the mean dog. But all these people carried firearms, and it never dawned on anybody, maybe we ought to shoot the dog that won't let us up the stairs and save our brewery worker. But so it was. But like I said, every place had its own story. Now what you see in these display cases is they're called go-withs. Most Montana breweries, especially in the early days, had virtually no advertising budgets, and so what they tried to do was print out or create things that folks would remember their brewery just in the course of a day, and so that's what you see in most of these places. And
All of these?
they gave out, everybody smoked, so breweries gave out matches, calendars, art prints with calendars on them. When they had ladies,
recipes.
try to have ladies, men were off fighting in war zones. Ladies were at home. To be a good hostess, you need to be able to cook and have card parties and talk about the American way is what they called it. And so you'll see they passed out recipe cards for folks. I love these. Breweries gave out wallets. Besides, they gave out ties and tie clasps.
Church keys.
Church keys, of course. The real beauty is when Mom sent you to the grocery store, and the corner grocery store, and you bought the milk and some bread. You pulled out your wallet to pay, and inside your wallet it's tattooed Butte Brewing Company or Great Falls Compliments of Great Falls Brewery.
Yeah.
Gee, that reminds me. I think I'll have a beer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you grab a 6-pack at the
That
same
sounds
time.
good right now.
Marketing at its finest.
Absolutely.
It really is. You'll see around here when we get a chance to kind of look at the walls, but you'll see FDR a number of different places, and he was the president that pushed through repeal. And
Okay.
so breweries held him in the highest of esteem. These are unique, real early openers. This is long before cans, but around the same time that these openers came into existence, the Model T was invented. And so when you look at the openers, you'll see some of them have these little squares in them. Obviously, this is for opening your beer. This is for your keychain. But what do you think that little square is? Well,
I honestly couldn't tell you.
what it is at the same time as you were opening your beer, you might stop the car and jump out. And Model Ts, my dad had one, my grandpa had one, but you might jump out and have to adjust the carburetor because the oil and gas mixture would, in the course of driving, would get off. And so this fit on the carburetor, and you could adjust to make your motor
Oh my
run
gosh.
smoothly. How utilitarian is that?
That's
you know?
amazing.
Isn't that great?
Brilliant.
Oh, I agree completely.
Like a Swiss Army knife, almost.
Yeah. But these are unique, and
yeah.
this is absolutely one of my favorites here, because it's from Great Falls, but the girl that's scratched on there, she's wearing one of those old time swimsuits. Isn't that neat?
It's amazing.
Oh, I love it. You know, sometimes breweries were a little more bold than that,
Yeah.
and just had the girl sans any clothing at all. But I love the one with the old swimsuit on. I mentioned Olympia being a Montana beer. Here's Olympia's first letterhead when it was in Butte.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful? It's an absolute work of art.
It is.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, the old artwork really stuns me. We were talking earlier before we got started here about printing, because we both have been in the printing industry, and it always amazes me the different artwork and just how stunning things looked that they could do well before we had a lot of automation and
yes.
the machinery that we have now.
just that stuff right there. This is a great piece right here. This is a Lewistown Brewing tin sign. It's embossed. And it has a lot of Montana in it too. When you look at their corporate logo, it had a fellow in a hop leaf fishing, and well, that is just great ink that they used on those things. You can see the 22 holes where somebody target practiced with
Very
it.
Montana.
Very Montana in every way. Of course, those inks were completely filled with all kinds of really bad chemicals,
Right.
and so you didn't want to really drink out of those. Some of those canisters, but the signs were great and they lasted a long time. Now, if you were in Montana and you were going to the brewery, you'd want to have your shoes looking sharp, so you could shine your shoes. You could take notes.
Oh my gosh, you're not kidding. They did give away darn near everything and anything that you could use.
Absolutely. You can see right down there, there's a Volk Broom, and that was made in 1892 for that's when baseball was really becoming big in Montana or across the country. Yeah, those were made only for referees, umpires. So in between innings, they could pull that hook right on their belt. They could pull it out, brush off home plate, and it says Volk Brewery on it. And, well, gee, I think I'll have a beer here. Isn't that a great idea? You could salt your eggs. You could drink your beer. A lot of the Centennial's advertising said 1 million glasses a day. Someone must like it. And that was in Butte, and they were 4-ounce glasses. They looked like that.
What are these little
Well,
tube? I don't know what to call them. These little round
what
cylinders.
do you think they are?
Well, that is a good question.
They would throw these up when you went in and you ordered a beer in the tavern in Great Falls. They'd throw these up on the counter, especially single men. Often were the ones that went into the breweries, and so these were sewing kits. See, there's the thimble, and there was a military presence there in Great Falls for years, Malmstrom Air Force Base, and so they had two rows of thread that you could. Most all of these are black and white thread, but for the guys that were at the military base, so you could sew your buttons on, and you
Right,
could
and
sew your
The right colors for
yep,
the
you
military.
could sew your badges. But what's unique, and I love the engineering of these. This is a single little piece of wood here, and inside each one
Oh
of
my
them
gosh,
were your pins, your needles, and your safety pins. Isn't that great?
that is incredible.
Oh, I love it. And you know, the brewery guys, the brew masters, in little small Montana breweries, small Montana towns, they were the the do-it-all. They were sometimes the town's doctor, the dentist. They did a little bit of everything. And this is a great piece right here. And every brewmaster had a pocket in his lab coat. Right. This is 1913. And he would drop this in, and in the course of the day, he would write down his, if the water, there was too much turbidity in the water, the grain was not up to snuff, maybe it was burnt a little bit, notes like that. And but in this one, I traded for this, and when I got it, it was wrapped in cellophane. Got it years ago, and there was a middle-aged man and woman over there, and I opened it up. I was so excited. I opened it up, then I started to laugh, and I didn't know what to say. And I'm no prude, for gosh sakes. I got 6 kids, 12 grandkids, you know, and yet this lady, she says, turns and says, "Well, what's so funny?" And I didn't know what to say to her, so I just handed it to her. Well, when you open it up, the inside of the front page is a prescription for, or a recipe for vaginal itch. and there's tells you how to mix it up. And
well, there you go.
The brewmaster even wrote, 1/3 of American women suffer external vaginal itching, so he had a note to himself. But that was kind of the job of the brewmaster in every little town. Took care of everything. And I handed it to the lady, and she opened it up, didn't change her expression. She looked at it and closed it, and she just handed it to me. And you guys have the second best quote in the Brewery Museum today, but hers is the first, because she handed it to me and she said, "Well, yeast is yeast." I absolutely cracked up.
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one to top.
Yeah, but you guys came in, you got the silver medal.
Well,
But
What did we get the silver medal for? So you have to say that quote. Do
you
you
gotta say the
remember it?
quote.
I'm going to write it down when we're done here. I was going to ask you to tell me again.
We were
It
talking
was-
about the All Souls Ale from Big Sky Brewing, which was brewed with.
And it was this way and that way was the quote. You'll have to tell me again.
Okay, so yeah, that beer was brewed with an actual minister, and then he started his own brewery down in Austin at Lazarus Brewing, and he said that if the beer doesn't go well, we can pray, and if the church doesn't go well, we can drink.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And he is still a minister today, even with his brewery down in Austin, and holds little services.
Well, good for him.
But yes, you're correct. Yeast is yeast.
Yeah, that.
And yeah, yeast
That's
is
just-
yeast.
That's a tough one to top.
Yeah.
That's a good quote.
They're great. They're 1933 when repeal came.
Which one?
These three
Okay.
right here, trying to get brewers to, or citizens to think that it was okay for ladies to brew again or to drink beer again. After all, ladies were the first in history, the first brewers. Mm-hmm. So they gave out these, and compliments of Great Falls breweries. But you can see that they were compacts for ladies.
Oh, yeah. We'll make up.
And these three all still have their rouge in them. Isn't that a great way?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm really happy with those. This is another piece. When we all went to college, no one ever had any money. Lucky for me at that time, you could buy Big Sky beer here for 66 cents a 6-pack.
Oh my gosh.
My senior year of high school and my freshman year of college, Big Sky from Great Falls was 66 cents. Wasn't always easy to find 66 cents, but
Yeah.
but these were great. Everyone smoked in those days. And if you look closely at it, it's Old Faithful beer,
Oh.
Gallatin Brewing Company, with a little arrow on it. It says you pay, whoever the arrow points to. Uh-oh.
Yeah, it says
Looks
give
like-
me a spin and
looks-
then you pay wherever
Yeah,
the arrows.
Looks like the beer's on me today, guys.
Take that.
All right. But all these go with this is one of my favorite pieces right here as well. Again, 1933, this is the brewing company in Missoula, the Missoula Brewing Company, that did Highlander Beer. And the idea behind it is that Dad could be involved with the kids,
Oh, wow.
and he could, in fact, feed Junior his pablum while he
Open.
opened and decanted his beer, his Highlander beer. Isn't that a great piece?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really amazing.
Yeah, really fond
And
of that.
even the detail that
Oh,
they
yeah.
etched a little artwork on it. and everything.
Absolutely. These pieces right here are for a well-dressed man could take the lint off his suit. Again, he could shine his shoes. And these were all given out by the breweries. Tie to hold your tie in place.
So these
Play
were
cards
all
with your friends.
Generally free of charge, just
Absolutely, absolutely. Yep. And you could pick your teeth. You could scrape the ice off your windshield. You could. Gets me, but you could think of beer while you were driving because your keychain reminded you of it. These were called.
Don't want to miss the turn.
No, of course. These were called punch boards, and they were set up in the bar. This is a Bozeman beer one, and we've all had spam, whether we admit it or not, at some point in our lives.
Oh, the food?
And,
Well,
yeah, and
loosely it's a food. But
well, yeah. On the
Yes.
bottom, there was a little key that you'd pull off the bottom of the
Yeah,
can
I
and
remember that.
go around, and these had one of those little keys as well in the back. You pulled it out, you paid your nickel to the bartender, and you got to take that key and push out any one of those spots. And what would come out the back is a little tiny, tightly rolled piece of paper.
Oh, really?
And it would say, "Congratulations, one free 6-pack of Bozeman beer," for instance.
Oh, my gosh.
Or it could say free pack of smokes. Or some of them, and I'm only reporting the facts.
Mhm.
Some of them would say, "Tough luck, shithead." And you didn't get anything except embarrassed by your friends. But
Nice.
yeah, those were great pieces, and I really like. This is an old advertising radio ad from that was on a record for radios, because that's what everybody listened to in the 40s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. We listened to radio advertisements while we were driving, and my family was no different. And I was just thrilled to get that. It was a Highlander Beer a jingle, but us kids always sang along. Didn't have seat belts. We stood up in the seats, and we all sang the jingles that were on the radio. Well, us kids knew all the beer jingles, and this particular one was one that our whole family, mom, dad, everybody would sing along. And if you'll humor me here.
Yeah.
Highlander beer's the beer, refreshing, cool, clean and clear. Highlander, Highlander, Highlander beer. No deposit, no return, just flip the lid and you'll learn it's Highlander, Highlander, Highlander beer. Then the whole family would all sing together. Highlander beer's the beer, refreshing. And we'd just scream it, driving down the road, and other people were singing nursery rhymes and things like that. And our family were singing all the beer ads, but
Yeah.
it was one of those things that anybody in my family, any of the kids, you can just mention it and they'll burst into song.
Oh, that's
Yeah, and I was lucky to get that. That was,
Oh my
that was for
gosh,
sure.
yeah.
Na zdrowie.
Make sure you subscribe and click the little bell so you don't miss out on the rest of the tour. To hear more of Bubs' personal story, head on over to our podcast, the Craft Beer Travel and Adventure Podcast. You can find it on our site at livingastoutlife.com or anywhere you listen to podcasts.